You are not broken. How to get out of emotional numbness and feel alive again. Part 1. You're not lazy. You're not weak. You're not broken. You're exhausted from holding yourself together for too long. This book is not about fixing you. It's about letting you breathe again. You've been strong for so long that you forgot what it feels like to soften. You've been functioning for so long that you forgot what it feels like to truly live. And now something inside you has gone quiet, not because you're failing, but because you've been carrying too much, for too long. Without rest, without release, without anyone noticing how heavy it all became. This is not a book that will tell you to think positive, or be grateful, or try harder. This is a book that will sit with you. In the quiet, in the numbness, in the place where feeling used to be, and it will remind you of something you may have forgotten. You are not broken. You never were. You're just tired, and tired people need rest. Not motivation, not pressure, not another strategy. Just rest, real rest. The kind that lets you put everything down. Not forever, just for now. Just long enough to remember who you are underneath all the surviving. Stay here, even if it feels uncomfortable. Even if your mind wants to leave. Even if you think nothing will help. Stay, because something inside you is ready to come back. And this is where it begins. Introduction. Why numbness is not the end, it's a signal. Emotional numbness is not what you think it is. It's not emptiness. It's not absence. It's not nothing. It's protection. Your mind's way of saying I can't hold any more right now. And so it stops receiving. It stops feeling. It creates distance between you and everything that was overwhelming you. Not because you're broken, but because you're human. And humans have limits. Emotional numbness, explained simply, means this: when pain lasts too long. The mind goes numb. When stress never stops. Feeling shuts down. When there's no space to process. Emotions go offline. It's not a flaw in your system. It's your system working exactly as it should. Protecting you from overwhelm, from collapse, from breaking completely. The numbness is not the problem. It's the solution your mind found when there were no other options. And recognizing that changes everything. Because I feel nothing is not failure. It's not weakness. It's not evidence that something is fundamentally wrong with you. It's evidence that you've been through something. That you've carried too much. That you've been strong for too long without support. And your system finally said enough. Not in anger, not in defeat, but in self-preservation. The moment everything quietly shut down was not a breakdown. It was a boundary, your mind's last line of defense. The only way it knew how to keep you functioning when functioning was all you had left. And so you kept going, you kept working, you kept showing up, you kept doing what was expected. But inside you were somewhere else. Somewhere far away, somewhere safe from all the feeling. And maybe that worked for a while. Maybe it got you through, but now, you're here, reading this, because some part of you knows. I can't stay here forever. I don't want to feel nothing for the rest of my life. I want to come back. And you can, not by forcing it. Not by pushing through, but by understanding what happened, why it happened, and what your system needs to feel safe enough to open again. That's what this book is for. Not to fix you, but to help you understand. that the numbness was never the enemy. It was the protector, and now it's time to let it know I'm safe enough to feel again. Not all at once, not dramatically, but slowly, gently, one small sensation at a time, until feeling becomes possible again, until presence becomes natural again, until you remember what it's like to be fully alive. Not surviving, but living. Really living. Chapter 1. When you stop feeling but keep functioning. Numbness is what happens when pain lasts too long. It's not a sudden thing, it's gradual. A slow fading, like a light dimming so slowly you don't notice until you're sitting in near darkness. First, the intense emotions fade, the anger, the sadness, the overwhelm. And you think, good, I'm getting stronger. I'm handling it better. I'm not falling apart anymore. But you're not stronger. You're shutting down. And there's a difference. Strength is feeling things and choosing how to respond. Shutdown is not feeling things at all. And shutdown looks like function. This is high-functioning emptiness. You go to work. You answer emails. You have conversations. You smile when you're supposed to. You laugh at the right times. From the outside you look fine, normal, maybe even successful, but inside there's nothing. No joy, no excitement, no anticipation, no connection, just flat. Like watching your life happen to someone else. Like you're an actor playing yourself. Going through the motions, saying the lines, but not really there. This is why you can work, talk, smile, and feel nothing. Because function and feeling are not the same thing. You can do everything right and still be completely disconnected. You can be productive and empty, capable and numb, present and absent, all at the same time. And people don't see it, because you've learned to hide it. Even from yourself, you tell yourself you're fine. Just tired, just stressed, just going through a phase. But deep down, you know it's more than that. You know something is missing, something essential, something that used to make life feel worth living. And now it's gone, not because you lost it, but because you had to turn it off to survive. This is the cost of surviving without feeling. It keeps you upright. It keeps you moving. It keeps you from breaking down. But it also keeps you from living, from being present, from experiencing anything fully. The good things don't touch you. A beautiful day feels neutral. Good news feels distant. Moments that should be joyful just aren't. They happen. You register them intellectually, but you don't feel them. And the painful things, they don't touch you either, which seems like a gift at first. Like relief, but it's not. Because when you can't feel pain, you also can't feel love. When you can't feel sadness, you also can't feel joy. When you can't feel anything bad, you also can't feel anything good. Numbness doesn't discriminate. It shuts it all down. The whole spectrum, and you're left in the middle. In the gray, in the flat, in the place where nothing hurts but nothing helps either. And that's where you've been. For how long you might not even remember. Because time blurs when you're numb. Days feel the same. Weeks feel the same. Months disappear. And you realize I can't remember the last time I felt anything fully. And that realization itself feels distant. Like it's happening behind glass. But it's also the beginning. The beginning of recognizing this is not living. This is just not dying. And I want more than that. I want to feel again, even if it's hard, even if it's scary, even if I don't know how. I want to come back. And you can, because the numbness is not permanent. It's protective, and when you don't need protection anymore, it will lift, not all at once, but gradually, the same way it came, one small feeling at a time, until you're fully here again, alive again, feeling again, not just functioning, but truly living. Chapter 2. You didn't lose yourself, you protected yourself. Your mind didn't betray you, it saved you. This is important to understand. The numbness was not a malfunction. It was not your mind giving up. It was your mind doing the only thing it could do to keep you going. When the pain became too much, it created distance. When the overwhelm became constant, it shut off the receptors. When there was no relief in sight, it went numb. Not because you're weak, but because you're human. And humans can only hold so much before something has to give. Your mind chose numbness over collapse, and in doing so it protected you. From breaking completely, from losing your ability to function, from falling apart when you couldn't afford to fall apart. This is emotional shutdown as protection. It's not the enemy. It's the last line of defense. The emergency protocol, the thing your system does when all other coping mechanisms have been exhausted. And it worked. You're still here. You're still standing. You're still showing up. That's not nothing. That's everything. It means the protection worked. It kept you intact. It kept you moving. It kept you alive. But now you're in a different place. The immediate crisis may have passed. The constant overwhelm may have eased. And you're left with the numbness. The distance, the feeling of being disconnected from yourself. And you want to come back. You want to feel again. But here's what doesn't work: forcing it. You can't force feeling to return. You can't command yourself to care. You can't think your way out of numbness, because numbness is not happening in your thinking mind. It's happening in your nervous system, in your body, in the part of you that doesn't respond to logic or willpower. This is why forcing emotions doesn't work. Why telling yourself to just feel doesn't help. Why trying to push through makes it worse. Because force is pressure. And pressure is what shut you down in the first place. More pressure won't open you back up. It will just reinforce the need for protection. Your system will sense still not safe. Still need to stay closed. Still need to stay numb. And the numbness will remain. What works is different. It's not force, it's invitation. It's safety. It's creating the conditions where your system feels safe enough to open again. This is letting safety come before feeling. Always. Because your nervous system will not let you feel until it believes you're safe. Safe from overwhelm, safe from judgment, safe from more pain than you can handle. And creating that safety is not about circumstances. It's not about fixing your life. It's not about removing all stressors. It's about your internal experience. About slowing down. About releasing pressure. About giving yourself permission to not be okay. To not have it together. To not function perfectly. Because perfectionism and numbness go hand in hand. When you believe you have to be perfect to be acceptable, you can't afford to feel, because feeling means being human, and being human means being imperfect. Messy, unpredictable, sometimes overwhelmed, sometimes not okay, and if that's not allowed, feeling can't come back, because feeling means vulnerability. And vulnerability requires safety. So the first step is not trying to feel. It's creating safety, internal safety. The kind that says I can be exactly where I am. I can feel what I feel or don't feel. I can be struggling and that doesn't make me broken. I can take as long as I need. I don't have to perform recovery. I don't have to be better by tomorrow. I can just be here. In this moment, with this experience, without judgment, without pressure, without the need to be anywhere other than where I am. That's safety. And that's what your system has been waiting for. Not for you to force it open, but for you to create the space where opening becomes possible, where feeling becomes safe, where vulnerability doesn't feel like danger. And when that space exists, something shifts. Not immediately, not dramatically, but gradually, your system starts to relax, just slightly, just enough to let a small feeling through, a moment of warmth, a flicker of interest, a brief connection, and that's the beginning. Not of forcing yourself to feel, but of allowing feeling to return. On its own timeline, in its own way, when it's safe enough to do so. And all you have to do is create the safety and wait. With patience, with compassion, with trust that your system knows what it's doing, that it protected you when you needed protection, and it will open when it's safe to open. You don't have to force it. You just have to trust it. Chapter 3. Why motivation disappears first. You don't need motivation. You need restoration. This is something most people get wrong. When you're numb, when you're exhausted, when you can't bring yourself to do anything, everyone tells you to find your motivation, to remember your why, to think about your goals, to push through. But motivation is not the problem. Depletion is. You can't motivate yourself out of exhaustion. You can't wire yourself out of numbness. You can't push through when you have nothing left to push with. Motivation requires energy. Enthusiasm requires capacity. Drive requires fuel. And you're running on empty, not because you're lazy, not because you don't care, but because you're depleted. Burnout versus depression versus exhaustion, they're all different. But they share one thing: motivation disappears when your system is in deficit. Burnout happens when you give more than you have for too long, when work or responsibility or caretaking drains you completely, when you keep going past your limits until there's nothing left. Depression is different. It's a deeper disconnection, a chemical, neurological shift that affects how you perceive everything. Exhaustion is simpler. It's what happens when you don't rest, when you don't recover, when you keep going without replenishing. And all three of them kill motivation, not because you've lost your drive, but because your system has nothing left to give. This is why pushing makes it worse. When you're depleted, pushing is just more depletion. When you're exhausted, trying harder is just more exhaustion. When you're running on empty, effort is just more drain. And your system responds by shutting down further, by protecting what little energy you have left, by saying no more. Not right now, not until you rest. But you don't rest because you've been taught that rest is weakness, that productivity is value, that you have to earn the right to stop. So you keep pushing, and the numbness deepens, and the motivation disappears completely. And you blame yourself. You think, what's wrong with me? Why can't I just do this? Why am I so lazy? But you're not lazy. You're exhausted, and exhaustion is not a moral failing. It's a biological reality. Your body and mind have limits, And when you exceed those limits without rest, motivation shuts down, not to punish you, but to protect you, to force you to stop. Because if motivation didn't disappear, you'd keep going until you broke completely. This is the lie of just try harder. That effort is always the answer. That if you're not motivated, you're not trying enough. But trying harder when you're depleted is like trying to drive a car with no gas. You can press the pedal as hard as you want. You can rev the engine. You can get angry at the car. But it won't move because it needs fuel. And you need rest, real rest. Not just sleep, though sleep helps. But restoration, the kind that replenishes your energy, that rebuilds your capacity, that refills the well you've been drawing from. And restoration doesn't look like productivity. It looks like doing less, moving slower, giving yourself permission to not achieve anything for a while, to just be. Without purpose, without output, without needing to justify your existence through what you produce. That's restoration, and that's what brings motivation back. Not by forcing it, but by creating the conditions where it can return naturally. When you have energy again, motivation follows. When you have capacity again, drive follows. When you have fuel again, the engine starts on its own. You don't have to force it. You just have to stop depleting yourself and start restoring yourself. One moment of rest at a time, one choice to do less at a time, one permission to not be productive at a time, until slowly, gradually, without you even noticing, the motivation starts to return. Not because you tried harder, but because you finally stopped trying and let yourself restore. Chapter 4. The body remembers what the mind avoids. Your body still knows how to feel even if you don't. This is important. When your mind goes numb, your body doesn't. It can't. Because your body is where emotions live. Not in your thoughts, not in your beliefs, but in your flesh, in your muscles, in your breath, in your nervous system. Every emotion you ever felt created a sensation in your body. Fear tightened your chest, anxiety quickened your breath, sadness weighed down your shoulders, joy opened your heart, and when you shut down emotionally, those sensations didn't disappear. They just went underground. Into your body, where they wait, held in tension, stored in muscle, trapped in shallow breathing. This is emotional numbness in the body. You might not feel the emotions anymore, but your body is still holding them, in the tightness of your jaw, in the knot in your stomach, in the heaviness in your chest, in the constant tension in your shoulders. Your body remembers everything your mind is trying to forget. And that's actually good news, because it means feeling is still there. It's just locked in your body instead of accessible in your awareness. And the way back to feeling is not through your mind. It's through your body. Through sensation, through simple awareness of what's actually happening in your physical form. Right now, in this moment. This is simple grounding without therapy language. You don't need techniques. You don't need exercises. You don't need to do anything complicated. You just need to notice, what does your body feel like right now? Not what you think about it, not what it should feel like, but what it actually feels like. Is there tension anywhere? Where? Is your breath shallow or deep, fast or slow? Are your shoulders up by your ears? Is your jaw clenched? Is there a weight in your chest? Just notice, without trying to change it, without trying to fix it. Just, oh, that's there. That simple awareness is the beginning of recognition. Because when you notice sensation, you're present in your body. And presence is the opposite of numbness. Numbness is distance. Presence is being here. And being here even if what's here is uncomfortable is how feeling returns. This is returning to sensation safely. Not all at once, not with big emotions, but with small sensations. The feeling of your feet on the ground, the temperature of the air on your skin, the weight of your body in the chair. These things are safe, they're neutral, they won't overwhelm you. But they will start to wake up your system, to remind it feeling is possible, sensation is available, being present in your body is okay. And the more you practice this simple noticing, the more your body starts to relax, because it's being acknowledged, being seen, being felt. After being ignored for so long, and in that relaxation, something shifts. The emotions that were trapped start to release. Not dramatically, not all at once, but gradually. A small wave of sadness, a brief moment of anxiety, a flicker of anger. And you might think, I don't want to feel these things. But feeling them is not the same as being overwhelmed by them. When you're present in your body, you can feel emotions and let them move through you. They arise, they peak, they pass like waves. And you stay grounded, connected to your body, to your breath, to the sensation of being here. And the emotion doesn't destroy you. It just moves through and leaves. This is what your body has been waiting for. Permission to feel what it's been holding. Permission to release what it's been storing. Permission to be present instead of protected. And all you have to do is notice. Feel your feet on the ground. Feel your breath moving in and out. Feel the sensations in your body without trying to change them. That's it. That simple act of noticing is how you come back. Not to who you were, but to being here. In your body, in this moment. Alive, feeling, present, even if it's uncomfortable. Even if it's subtle. Even if it doesn't feel like enough yet. It is because your body still knows how to feel, and it's been waiting for you to come back, to notice, to be here, to let the feeling return. Chapter 5. How to feel again without overwhelming yourself. Feeling returns quietly, not dramatically. If you're waiting for a big moment, a sudden rush of emotion, a breaking open, a flood of everything you've been holding back, you'll miss it. Because that's not how it happens. Feeling returns in whispers, in small moments, in subtle shifts you might not even notice at first. A brief warmth in your chest, a moment where a song touches you, a second where you actually taste your food. These are not dramatic. They're easy to overlook, easy to dismiss as nothing. But they're not nothing, they're everything. They're proof that feeling is coming back, that your system is opening, that the numbness is lifting. And recognizing these small moments matters, because if you're looking for big emotions, you'll think nothing is changing. You'll think you're still stuck. Still numb, still broken. But you're not. You're just healing quietly. And this is why big emotions are not the goal. Because big emotions can be overwhelming. They can flood your system. They can make you shut down again out of self-protection. What you need is not intensity. What you need is connection, small, manageable, safe connection to feeling. And that comes through micro feelings, warmth, relief, calm. These are not exciting. They're not Instagram worthy. They're not the kind of thing you tell people about. But they're real, and they're healing. because they're teaching your system feeling is safe. I can let a little bit in and be okay. I don't have to be flooded. I don't have to be overwhelmed. I can feel something small and handle it. And every time you do that, every time you notice a micro feeling and stay with it, you're building capacity. You're strengthening your ability to feel. You're proving to your nervous system that it's safe to open. This is letting emotions come back in pieces. Not all at once, not as one big overwhelming wave, but gradually, piece by piece, feeling by feeling, moment by moment. Today you might notice a moment of relief when you finish a task. Tomorrow you might feel a brief warmth when someone is kind to you. Next week, you might notice that you actually enjoyed something for a few seconds. These moments are not random. They're not insignificant. They're your system testing the waters, seeing if it's safe to feel, seeing if you'll notice, seeing if you'll allow it. And if you notice these small feelings and don't push them away, more will come. Not because you're forcing them, but because you're creating space for them. You're showing your system it's okay to feel now. I can handle this. I'm not going to be overwhelmed. I'm not going to shut down again. I can stay present with small feelings. And that presence, that simple, gentle presence with micro feelings, is what allows bigger feelings to eventually return. Not because you pushed for them, but because you built the capacity to hold them. By starting small, by honoring the whispers, by recognizing that healing is not dramatic. It's quiet, steady, incremental. And every small feeling matters. Every moment of warmth matters. Every second of relief matters. Because they're all proof that you're coming back. Not to who you were, but to being able to feel again. And feeling, even small, quiet, undramatic feeling, is everything. It's life, it's presence, it's being here. And that's what you've been missing. Not intensity, not drama, not overwhelming emotion. Just the simple, profound experience of feeling something, anything, and knowing that you're alive, that you're here, that the numbness is not permanent, and that feeling is returning, one small whisper at a time. Chapter 6. The danger of comparing your recovery. Healing is not visible and not linear. This is something most people don't understand. They think healing looks like progress, like getting better every day, like a steady upward climb from broken to whole. But that's not how it works. Healing is invisible. It happens inside you, in your nervous system, in your body, in places no one else can see, and it doesn't move in a straight line. Some days you feel better, some days you feel worse, some days you feel nothing at all, and none of that means you're failing. It just means you're human, and human healing is messy. Nonlinear, unpredictable, 2 steps forward, 1 step back, sometimes 3 steps back. And that's normal. That's how it's supposed to be. But when you compare yourself to others, you lose sight of that. You see someone who seems to be healing faster. Someone who seems to have it together. Someone who seems to have bounced back. And you think, what's wrong with me? Why am I still struggling? Why is this taking so long? But here's what you're not seeing: their struggle, their bad days, their moments of numbness, their setbacks. You're comparing your inside to their outside. Your messy, nonlinear, invisible healing process to their curated, visible presentation. And that comparison is killing your recovery. This is why comparison delays recovery. Because every time you measure yourself against someone else, you're adding pressure. You're saying I should be further along. I should be better by now. I should be like them. And that shit is just more weight, more expectation, more judgment, and your system responds to that pressure by shutting down, by protecting itself, by saying not safe yet. Still being judged, still not enough, still need to stay closed, and the numbness continues. Not because you're actually behind, but because you're treating yourself like you are. The truth is there is no timeline. There is no should be healed by now. There is no normal pace of recovery. There's just your pace, your process, your unique, individual, non-comparable journey. And it's valid exactly as it is, even if it's slow, even if it's messy, even if it doesn't look like anyone else's. This is social pressure to be okay already. People want you to be better. They want you to move on. They want you to go back to normal. Not because they don't care, but because your struggle makes them uncomfortable. It reminds them of their own vulnerability, their own pain, their own numbness that they might be avoiding. So they push you, subtly, with well-meaning comments. You should try. Have you thought about, it's been a while. Maybe it's time to. And every one of those comments is pressure. Every one is a judgment. Everyone is saying you're not healing fast enough. But they're wrong, because they're not you. They're not in your body. They're not carrying what you're carrying. They don't know what your system needs. Only you do, and your system needs what it needs, for as long as it needs it. Without apology, without explanation, without justification. This is your timeline is valid. Not because it's fast, not because it's efficient, not because it matches anyone else's, but because it's yours, and you are the only authority on your own healing. Not your friends, not your family, not society, not some arbitrary standard of how long recovery should take. You, your body, your nervous system, your inner knowing. That's what matters. And if that knowing says I need more time, then you need more time. If it says I'm not ready yet, then you're not ready yet. If it says I need to go slower, then you go slower. Without shame, without comparison, without the belief that you're doing it wrong. Because there is no wrong. There's just your process, unfolding at its own pace, in its own way. And the more you honor that, the more you release comparison and trust your own timeline, the more your system relaxes. Because it's no longer being judged, no longer being rushed, no longer being measured against some external standard. It's just being allowed to heal at its own pace, to take as long as it needs, to be exactly where it is without pressure to be anywhere else. And that allowance, that radical acceptance of your own timing is what creates the safety for healing to continue. Not faster, but deeper. Not more visibly, but more real. Until one day you realize I'm not comparing anymore. I'm just being, and that being that simple, pressure-free being is where healing actually happens. Part 2. Chapter 7. When nothing excites you anymore. Loss of joy doesn't mean loss of future. This is hard to believe when you're in it. When nothing feels good, when nothing excites you, when you look at things that used to bring you joy and feel nothing. It feels permanent, like joy is gone forever, like you'll never feel that lightness again. But it's not true. The loss of joy is not the loss of your capacity for joy. It's just a temporary shutdown. A protective mechanism. Your system saying, I can't process anything good right now because I'm still processing too much bad. This is anhedonia explained gently. Anhedonia is the technical term for the inability to feel pleasure. But you don't need to know the term to know the experience. The flatness, the disinterest, the feeling that nothing matters, that nothing is worth the effort, that even the things you used to love feel hollow now. It's not that you don't want to feel joy. It's that you can't access it. Because your system is still in protection mode. And in protection mode, joy feels like vulnerability, like opening up, like letting your guard down. And your system doesn't feel safe enough to do that yet. So it blocks joy, not to punish you, but to protect you from the disappointment that might come if you hope for something and it doesn't work out, from the pain of letting yourself care and then being hurt, from the risk of opening and then needing to close again. It's keeping you safe by keeping you flat. And understanding this helps, because it means the loss of joy is not permanent. It's protective. And protection only lasts as long as it's needed. This is why joy disappears before pain does. Because joy requires openness. It requires vulnerability. It requires letting good things in. And when you're overwhelmed, letting things in, even good things, feels dangerous. So joy shuts down first, before pain, before sadness, before anger. Because those emotions are protective in their own way. They keep you alert. They keep you defended. They keep you from being blindsided. But joy makes you soft. And soft doesn't feel safe when you've been hurt. So it goes, and you're left with neutrality, with flatness, with the absence of both pain and pleasure. And that absence is its own kind of suffering. But here's what helps: you don't have to reach for joy yet. You don't have to force happiness. You don't have to try to feel excited about things. What you need is simpler. This is allowing neutral moments first. Not happy moments, not joyful moments. Just neutral moments. Moments where you're not suffering. Moments where you're not overwhelmed. Moments where you're just here, existing, breathing, present. These moments might not feel like much. They might not feel like healing. But they are. Because neutral is the bridge between numbness and joy. Neutral is where your system rests, where it stops protecting quite so hard, where it starts to believe maybe it's okay to relax a little. And in that relaxation, small openings appear, not for joy yet, but for interest, for curiosity, for moments where something catches your attention. A bird outside, a color you notice, a song that doesn't annoy you. These are not joyful moments, but they're not numb moments either. They're neutral moments with a hint of presence. And presence is what you're building toward. Not happiness, presence, the ability to be here, to notice, to engage, even slightly, with what's in front of you. And every neutral moment where you're present builds capacity, strengthens your system, proves that you can be here without being overwhelmed, that you can notice things without being hurt by them, that you can be open just slightly and be okay. And over time, slowly, gradually, without you forcing it, those neutral moments start to shift. A hint of warmth appears. A moment of that's nice rather than I don't care. A small pleasure that actually registers. Not dramatic, not life-changing, but real. And that realness matters. Because it means joy is not gone. It's just resting, waiting for you to feel safe enough to let it back in. And you don't do that by chasing it. You do that by allowing neutral, by being present with what is, by not demanding that you feel good before you're ready, by trusting that when your system feels safe, joy will return, not because you forced it, but because it's natural, because humans are wired for pleasure as much as pain. And when the protection is no longer needed, joy comes back quietly, gradually, in small, surprising moments. Until one day you realize I felt something good just then. And it didn't scare me. It didn't overwhelm me. It just was. And that's everything. That's the return. Not of constant happiness, but of capacity for joy. And that capacity is still in you, waiting for the moment you're ready. Chapter 8. Rebuilding energy without forcing happiness. You don't need happiness. You need stability. This might be the most important thing to understand about recovery. Everyone talks about happiness, finding joy, being positive, thinking grateful thoughts. But when you're depleted, happiness is non-accessible. It's not even relevant. What you need is much more basic. You need energy. You need the capacity to get through a day without collapsing. You need stability. The kind that lets you function without feeling like you're about to fall apart. And stability comes before happiness. Always, this is energy before emotions. You can't feel joy when you have no energy. You can't access positive emotions when you're running on empty. Your system prioritizes survival over satisfaction. And right now, you're in survival mode, not because something is actively threatening you, but because you're depleted. And depletion is its own kind of threat. It tells your system conserve energy. Don't waste it on feeling. Don't waste it on connection. Just do what's necessary and nothing more. So that's what you do. You get through the day. You do the minimum. You function. Barely. And you think, I should be happier. I should be more grateful. I should be enjoying my life. But you can't, because you don't have the energy for it. And that's okay, because right now, energy is the goal, not happiness. Energy, capacity. The ability to move through your day without feeling like you're dragging yourself through mud. And you build that through safe routines that don't overwhelm. Not through pushing, not through doing more, not through trying to be productive, but through gentle, consistent, sustainable routines that support your system instead of draining it. What does that look like? It looks like less doing, less achieving, less trying, and more resting, more nourishing, more allowing yourself to just be. It might look like eating regularly, even when you don't feel like it. Going to bed at the same time, even when you think you should be doing more. Moving your body gently, not to burn calories or achieve fitness, but just to remind it that movement is available. Spending time outside, not because it's good for you, but because your system needs something other than walls and screens. Saying no to things that drain you, even if they're good things. Protecting your energy like it's precious, because it is. This is doing less but consistently. Not doing nothing, but doing only what truly supports you, and doing it regularly. Because consistency builds stability, and stability builds energy. And energy is what allows everything else to come back, including eventually happiness. But you don't chase happiness. You build the foundation that makes happiness possible. And that foundation is energy. The kind that comes from taking care of yourself. Not in a self-help optimization way, but in a basic, human survival way: sleep, food, movement, rest. Connection when you can manage it, solitude when you can't. These things don't feel profound. They don't feel like healing. They feel mundane. Boring even, but they're everything. Because without energy you can't heal. Without stability you can't open. Without capacity you can't feel. So you build capacity slowly, through small, sustainable choices that honor where you actually are instead of demanding you be somewhere else. You don't force yourself to exercise if you're exhausted. You don't force yourself to socialize if you have nothing left. You don't force yourself to be productive if your system is screaming for rest. You listen. And you give yourself what you actually need. Not what you think you should need, what you actually need. And often what you actually need is less. Less stimulation, less demand, less pressure, and more space, more quiet, more permission to do absolutely nothing and have that be okay. Because nothing is sometimes exactly what your system needs to restore. And restoration is not dramatic. It's not visible. It doesn't look like progress. It looks like rest, like simplicity, like doing less and being okay with that. But over time, that rest accumulates, that simplicity compounds. And you start to notice, I have a little more energy today. I didn't feel like collapsing after one task. I was able to handle something that would have overwhelmed me last week. These changes are subtle, easy to miss, but they're real, and they're proof that rebuilding energy works, not through force, but through consistency. Through honoring your limits, through doing less but doing it sustainably, until you have enough energy to start feeling again. Not happiness yet, but presence, connection, interest. The small openings that come when you're no longer just surviving, when you have enough capacity to notice what's around you, to engage even slightly with life. And that engagement is where healing deepens, not through forcing happiness, but through building the energy that makes feeling possible. One small sustainable choice at a time. Chapter 9. The moment you realize you're coming back. It's subtle, but it's real. There's a moment in recovery that most people miss. Because it's not dramatic, it's not a breakthrough, it's not a sudden rush of feeling. It's quiet. Almost imperceptible, but it's there. It's the moment you realize something is different. Not big, not obvious, but different. Maybe it's a morning where you wake up and don't immediately feel heavy. Maybe it's a conversation where you're actually listening instead of just waiting for it to end. Maybe it's a moment where you notice something beautiful and it actually registers. Not as joy, not as happiness, but as, oh, that's nice. And that, oh, that's nice is everything, because it means you're here. Present, noticing, connected even slightly to what's in front of you, and that connection is what you've been missing. Not happiness, connection. The feeling of being inside your own life instead of watching it from a distance. These are the early signs of emotional return. They don't announce themselves. They don't feel significant. They just appear. In small moments, a brief warmth in your chest, a moment where you care about something, a second where you feel something. You might not even be able to name it, but it's there, and it's real, and noticing it matters. Because if you dismiss it, if you think that's nothing or that doesn't count, you'll miss the proof that you're healing. This is trusting small changes, believing that the tiny shifts are real, that they're significant. that they're leading somewhere. Even if you can't see the full picture yet, even if you don't feel better, even if most of the time you still feel numb, the small changes matter. Because they're evidence that your system is opening, that protection is easing, that feeling is returning, not all at once, but gradually, in whispers. And if you pay attention to the whispers, they become voices. If you honor the small feelings, they grow. If you trust the subtle shifts, they deepen, not because you're forcing them, but because you're creating space for them. You're noticing them, acknowledging them, allowing them to be real instead of dismissing them. And that allowance is what lets healing continue, what lets feeling return, what lets you come back to yourself. One small moment at a time. This is not rushing the process, not demanding that you be healed now, not expecting dramatic transformation, just noticing what's actually happening. And what's actually happening might be small, but it's real, and it's yours, and it's proof that you're not stuck, not broken, not permanently numb. You're healing quietly, gradually, subtly, in ways that don't show up on the outside but are profound on the inside. And trusting that process, trusting that the small changes are leading somewhere is what allows you to keep going. Not with effort, not with force, but with patience, with gentleness, with the understanding that healing is not linear. It's not fast, it's not visible, but it's real, and you're in it. Right now, in this moment, where something small is shifting, where feeling is returning, where you're coming back, not to who you were, but to being here, being present, being alive in small, quiet, undeniable ways. And that's everything. That's the moment. The one most people miss because they're looking for something bigger. But you don't need bigger. You just need real, and this is real. This small shift, this subtle feeling, this quiet return, it's real, and it's yours, and it's happening right now. Conclusion. You were never broken. You don't need to become someone new. You need to come back to who you were before you learned to survive. This is the truth underneath everything. You are not broken, you never were. You just learned to protect yourself, to shut down, to go numb, because it was the only way to keep going. And that protection served you. It kept you intact. It kept you moving. It kept you alive. But now, it's time to come back, not to who you were before everything happened, but to who you are underneath the protection. The you that still knows how to feel, that still has capacity for joy, that still has connection available. That version was never lost. It was just buried under numbness, under exhaustion, under the weight of everything you've been carrying. And coming back doesn't mean digging it out. It means releasing the weight, easing the protection, creating the space where that version can emerge naturally. Without force, without pressure, without the belief that you need to be fixed. Because you don't need fixing. You need space. You need rest. You need permission to be exactly where you are without shame, without judgment, without the pressure to be better already. And in that space, something shifts. The numbness starts to lift, the exhaustion starts to ease, the protection starts to soften, not all at once, but gradually, one small release at a time, one moment of presence at a time, one whisper of feeling at a time. Until you realize I'm here again, not all the way, not perfectly, but more than I was yesterday, more than I was last week. more than I was when I first picked up this book. And that's enough. That's everything. Because healing is not about arriving, it's about returning, again and again, to yourself, to presence, to the understanding that you are enough. Exactly as you are, numb or feeling, exhausted or energized, protected or open. All of it is okay. All of it is human. All of it is part of the process. And the process is not about becoming someone new. It's about remembering who you've always been, underneath the survival, underneath the numbness, underneath the weight. You've always been whole. You've always been enough. You've always been worthy of rest, of care, of gentle return. And now you're allowing that, not perfectly, not completely, but enough. Enough to feel something, enough to be present, enough to come back. And that return is not the end, it's the beginning. The beginning of living instead of surviving. The beginning of feeling instead of numbing. The beginning of being here instead of being somewhere far away. And you don't have to force it. You just have to allow it, one breath at a time, one moment at a time, one small feeling at a time, until you're fully here again. Not because you fixed yourself, but because you came back to yourself, and that's all you ever needed to do. Not become someone new, just come back to who you were before you learned to survive, to who you still are underneath it all, whole, worthy, enough. You were never broken. Closing moment. Take one more breath with me, slow, deep, all the way in, all the way out, and notice what's here, right now. In this moment, not what should be here, not what you hope will be here someday, but what's actually here. Maybe it's stillness. Maybe it's a small feeling. Maybe it's just the awareness that you're breathing. Whatever it is, it's enough. You're enough, right here, right now. Not when you're healed, not when you're happy, not when you're feeling everything again. But now, exactly as you are. You don't need to be anywhere else. You don't need to be anyone else. You just need to be here. With yourself, with whatever you're feeling or not feeling, with the understanding that this moment is enough. And you are enough. You always were. You just forgot for a while. But now you're remembering. And that remembering is everything. Stay with it a little longer. Not because you have to, but because you can. Because for once there's nowhere else you need to be. Nothing else you need to do. No one else you need to become. Just this, just you. Just now. Breathing, being here. And that's more than enough.